Part 17. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 161. Chapter 161 Explosion. AQ, Tangwan rubbed the tip of his itchy nose, turned on the computer, and continued to improve the small program he made last time. Although it has been tested on Sujiajia, Tangwan still feels that there are some places that can be modified. Tangwan noticed that the program he had done before started to be used again. Her movements slowly stopped, but Sujiajia's location was not found on the map of the territory. Strange. Is she abroad? But soon, the program was shut down. Apparently, people around Sujiajia discovered something was wrong with the electronic equipment on her body. Tangwan pursed his lips slightly and wrote this down. As for the promotion of national culture, Tangwan chose the mother-in-law of a Huainan family who does handicrafts. That was the mother-in-law she met when she was picking up garbage. She would take the initiative to leave a clean bottle for Tangwan, which was a small amount of goodwill she gained from that place. When Tangwan went to Huainan for the second time, she also visited the mother-in-law. However, the mother-in-law rejected Tangwan. Her cloudy eyes had an expression that Tangwan couldn't understand. She stretched out her old hand and touched Tangwan's head while saying something. "It's good to leave, it's good to leave. Tang, don't come back." Tangwan didn't know what the mother-in-law meant, so she just gave her a lot of supplements and her contact information. It's just that it's been so long, Tangwan still hasn't received a call from her mother-in-law. But Tangwan's plans will not stop. She followed her own ideas and chose to cooperate with teachers from the Academy of Fine Arts. She is one of those grandmas I met on the program set. Li Mingsuo, Grandma Li. But Tangwan was a little busy during this period, so the visit to Grandma Li was postponed. Tangwan took a day off today. She was going to the Shui family cemetery to put her mother's things in it. Complete the tombstone without words. Tangwan did not wear a long black skirt, but a bright yellow skirt, a hat with yellow cat ears on her head, and a crabapple flower on her chest. She did not wear a black skirt or white flowers. Because Tangwan knew how someone with such a bright mother could like solemn colors. Lu Lin was slightly stunned when he saw Tangwan's clothes, but he didn't ask anything, nor did he ask Tangwan to go back and change. He just took Tangwan's hand and walked into the car. When the group of them arrived at the Shui family cemetery, Tangwan also saw Sci-fi sitting in a wheelchair. Both of them were a little stunned. Because none of them were wearing black clothes. Among those black colors, they are the bright colors of the mountains and fields. Then Sci-fi slowly moved the wheelchair, came to Tangwan's side, and picked her up. Needless to say, they know their lovers extremely well. Lu Lin was a little unhappy when he saw his little cub being robbed. Lu Yao on the side rolled her eyes and said angrily, "Okay, that's my kid. You've been keeping it for so long. It's a good thing that I didn't ask you to take it back." Lu Lin replied unconvinced, "I discovered Tang. Lu Yao knew what kind of bad temper her brother was and was very stubborn. She sighed, "Don't make it difficult for Tang. Besides, Tang didn't say she wanted to go back to Ci's house. It was because Tangwan didn't return to Ci's house immediately that Lu Lin didn't make a fuss. Otherwise, Lu Lin and Sci-fi would have started fighting long ago. He has no intention of being modest. We all grew up together. How could he not know what kind of bad guy Sci-fi is?" This time the Si family did not invite many people, they just called Tangwan's friends over. Fu Wenzi and Pei Yunzhou came together. This time Fu Wenzi did not take the lead to go to Tangwan, but stood aside and paid no attention to anyone. At this time, let's leave some space to Tangwan. Always have time to digest your emotions. When we arrived at the tombstone, there was no one there. Only Tangwan and Siwei are left. They put the things in their hands into the small box and buried them together. Tang Wan looked at the photo of her mother on the tombstone, feeling a little lost. So my mother looks like this. The surrounding wind should feel cold on her body, but Tang Wan doesn't feel it. She felt that every time the wind blew on her, her mother was hugging her. Sci-fi is not a talkative person. Tang Wan can't speak. If he doesn't speak, it will be too quiet here. So he began to ramble. You are so young. When I go down, don't think I am old. Tang Tang is very cute and understands you very well. We all wore bright colors to see you. I prepared sweets for you, as well as cookies made by Tang Tang. The cookies she made are delicious, much better than those you make. At this point, Sci chuckled lightly and his eyebrows softened a lot. It's great that she didn't inherit your ability to blow up the kitchen. Tang Wan saw this, jumped down from Sci's arms, and left here. She knew that Sci still had a lot to say to his mother. As soon as Tang Wan's figure disappeared in front of Sci, he immediately struggled to stand up from the wheelchair and wanted to touch Shwemina on the tombstone. The voice also became deeper. Nana, I miss you so much. But you are already in this little box, and I am still alive in this world. I feel a little lonely. Tang Wan saw Grandma Si looking at her with red eyes outside the crowd. She looked at him, then turned her head and wiped her eyes. It's like wiping away tears and becoming an indestructible adult. Tang Wan found that Si Nana had more and more gray hair on her head, just like Siy. A snowfall made them age a lot. Made Tang Wan feel a little uncomfortable. They are also family. Tang Wan trotted towards Grandma Si, and then hugged Grandma Si tightly. Grandma Si stretched out her hands tremblingly and hugged Tang Wan into her arms. Just like she did when she picked up her best friend's remaining child more than 20 years ago. He said, "Good baby, good baby. Grandma will stay with you." Tang Wan blinked his eyes and suppressed the soreness in his eyes. I added silently in my mind. I will also accompany you. When Tang Wan returned to the Lu family from the Shui family cemetery, he suddenly received a message from Chris on his watch. Chris is like a tireless, ever-enthusiastic little bear who sends messages to Tang Wan every day. But because the places we live in are too far apart, there is a time difference. Most of the time, it would take a long time for Tang Wan to reply. But today, the time when Chris sent the message was obviously wrong. Tang Wan clicked on his watch and found Chris' voice. She clicked on Chris's voicemail, but heard the sound of an explosion. Sugar, small, careful. Tang Wan frowned, ran to Siy, and told him this voice message. What should I be careful about? Why is there an explosion sound over there? Ah, it's too much, and there's nothing to say. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 162. Chapter 162. Cute little dumpling. Tang Wan suddenly became alert. Chris is her friend. Although they don't meet often, they always communicate with each other. Emotions require constant exchanges. Even though Chris is abroad all year round, he always chats with Tang Wan enthusiastically. The beautiful name is learning Chinese. Chris's Chinese is slowly getting better, and he even invited Tang Wan to play with his new toy. That's right, since the last cruise ship was bombed, Chris's elders saw him feeling depressed and bought him another one. Want to make Chris happy. Chris doesn't want to, he just wants to go to school in the East. Just because of his Chinese proficiency, he probably didn't even know how to order food, so he was ignored by everyone. Tang Wan doesn't understand why Chris's family makes cars, but the gift every time is a cruise ship, but this doesn't stop Chris from wanting to play with Tang Wan. Furthermore, Chris has been in poor health because of the last cruise incident. It's a bit like a sequelae, and Tang Wan is also quite worried about him. So now that she heard the explosion from Chris' side again, Tang Wan felt something was wrong. Perhaps the explosion this time was caused by the same group of people as the last time. Thinking of this, Tang Wan's first reaction was to go find Lu Lin. But as soon as she ran out the door, she remembered that Lu Lin had already left on a plane. I also took a leave from the crew when I came back today, and his filming is not finished yet. So Tang Wan thought for a while, turned on the children's watch, found Lu Yao's contact information, and then sent a message. Tang Tang, Sister Yao Yao, there was another explosion on Chris' side. Lu Yao was still in the meeting and was a little surprised to receive the news from Tang Wan. Because in her mind, when something happened to Tang Wan, she would always go to Lu Lin directly and rarely go to anyone else. But Lu Yao soon figured out that it was probably because Lu Lin was abroad and not in the country, so he found her. As for why Sci-fi was not approached, Lu Yao could actually guess what Tang Wan was thinking. Probably because Sci-fi didn't go on the last cruise, Tang Wan knew that the Si family might have some trouble dealing with matters abroad. But she didn't think that a child as young as Tang Wan could think of so much. Should it be just a coincidence? But the world of adults is not as simple as the world of children. When the Toulouse family has not applied for assistance, they cannot take action, otherwise they will be considered to have evil intentions. Take advantage of others' illness and kill them. It was just that Tang Wan forwarded Chris's message, which made Lu Yao a little worried. The Toulouse family has always been a neutral merchant family. They are a rare family that does not have any prejudice against the East. Can also be regarded as half an ally of the Lu family. Lu Yao thought for a while and called the police for them. This situation is not something that honest businessmen like them can solve. However, Lu Yao was not prepared to tell Tang Wan these troublesome words. Let's solve it the way adults do. Tang Wan is actually very worried. Even after telling Sister Lu Yao, she was still a little worried. Tang Wan knew she couldn't sit still and wait for death. She looked at the flashing signal before and called up Sujiajia's position. Then I turned on Chris' positioning and found that before the signal was lost, the two positions were very close and almost overlapped. Tang Wan did not miss this information and sent the information about Sujiajia to Lu Yao. And Sci-fi may not be very familiar with Chris, but for Sujiajia, he must be in his heart. After all, Sujiajia's mother was the accomplice who kept their family separated for so many years. So when Sci-fi saw Tang Wan sending Sujiajia's location, he didn't even have any doubts and directly asked people to go to this location. As for why Tang Wan knew, it does not matter. He knew that Tang Wan was smart and that Tang Wan would not lie to him. The rest was not important. Tang Wan slowly fell asleep after receiving the confirmed news from Sci-fi. As everyone knows, many people will not be able to sleep tonight. There are many more dangers at sea than on land. Those who can get airline routes almost always have some background in their families. And those who can act tyrannically on the sea are even rarer. Chris and Toulouse were in very bad condition after being rescued. This time, tear gas was added to the explosion, which kept their skin red and swollen. Nearly everyone was asking Toulouse about the situation at that time, but Toulouse remained tight-lipped and didn't say a word. Only Chris asked in private, with a somewhat ugly look on his face, "Brother, is it?" However, before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Toulouse. "No. This is the first time Chris has seen such a brother." His expression was very fierce, looking like a defeated wolf king. "It's just that he doesn't have any decadent aura on his body, he looks more like a bad wolf that has been touched by a male." Extremely angry, Chris looked at his brother blankly, as if the mute button had been pressed. Until Chris left the ward, he was still trembling. Brother is really angry, and it seems that he must go back for revenge. Chris thought of this and subconsciously wanted to talk to Tang Wan. However, when he raised his wrist, he realized that his communication device was broken. "Looks like I need to buy a new one before I can contact you." On the other side, it was already dawn. Tangwan got up from the bed and used his weekend break to find Grandma Li, wanting to talk to her about the cooperation with the Spring Flower Club of Lingyun College. Before the visit, Tangwan politely called Grandma Li, finalized the time, and took the souvenirs before visiting. It's just Grandma Li's residence. Unlike other grandma's residences, she lives in the college. So when a little dumpling jumped down from Cullinan, everyone was a little surprised. Which rich family came to school to play in this house? The driver also wanted to follow him. After all, Tangwan was only 6 years old, which was too young. However, Tangwan just waved his hand, raised his head and walked in by himself. Looking like a young adult, he is actually somewhat reliable. College students who were in school did not go home, but just wandered around the campus. Then I saw a round little dumpling on campus, jumping around on the road, like a lively little rabbit. Some people also took out their mobile phones to take photos of Tangwan wearing a long-sleeved dress and posted them on the school forum. Whose sister is this? So cute. UN gun photo. The chubby little face looks really good to pinch. This, isn't this Tang Tang? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 163. Chapter 163. The older you get, the younger you get, childish. Tangwan felt that there were many eyes around him looking at him. But every time she turned her head, she couldn't find who was staring at her. The school forum has not quieted down yet. They looked at 3L's reply and continued to ask. Her name is Tang Tang? Do you know her? Have you not watched the variety show New Dad that was very popular some time ago? Tang Tang is the little guest inside. She is super cute and a very reliable little cub. Woo, I haven't seen Tang Tang for a long time. Actor Lu covered Tang Tang tightly, and no one could find any trace of Tang Tang's life. Wait a minute, classmates upstairs, please don't cry. I just searched. Why does this variety show seem to have problems in every issue? Laughing to death, I've seen it too. Every time there are legal professionals, they are so unlucky. I think the fat director is going to be broken. Fat director, did I do something wrong to meet you here? Wow, Tang Tang can't speak, but she is so smart. Yes, Tang Tang is a child in the orphanage, but she is very lovable. Now she has been adopted by actor Lu and she is his sister. But everyone would be so simply happy for Tangwan's luck. Jealousy is also a human emotion. But her life is good now, and she can get down from Cullinan. Your tone is so weird. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? If you have nothing to do, let's eat some plums. Trouble, if you are so malicious towards a child, your life is so unsatisfactory. The person who said that not only did not get everyone's approval, but was also beaten up. He was unconvinced and the keyboard clicked loudly. Even if you lick her here, she won't see you, let alone invite you to the villa, and she won't give you a penny. She has become a rich person, but you are still running for life. After saying that, he closed the forum, feeling a little guilty and not daring to read it. And his roommate in the dormitory suddenly shouted, "What the is this mentally retarded? How can you be so malicious to a child?" Another roommate took off his earphones, approached the speaker and asked, "What? Show me. Wow, this kid is so cute." Then his voice changed, and his tone was a little disgusting. "Who is this person? He is from the same school as us? Why does he have such a bad mouth?" The people who were still in the dormitory were stunned for a moment, then turned off their computers, rushed out of the dormitory, slammed the door, and left angrily. The classmate who just spoke touched his head and said in a daze, What is he doing? Is he so angry? Who knows, he's always been so weird. Tang Wan didn't know that so many people were discussing her in just a short distance. She was still thinking about what she should do and what she should say when she saw Grandma Li. When Tang Wan stood at Grandma Li's door, she was still thinking about how to answer. But the moment the door opened, Tang Wan just said hello to Grandma Li and handed her the prepared souvenir. Tang Tang is here, Grandma Li was still so lively, with an upbeat tone. She had a girl-like smile on her face, and her whole person was full of life. Through the door, you can see an old man with gray hair, wearing reading glasses, lying on a recliner and reading a newspaper. The sun was shining on him, making him look very comfortable. Hearing Grandma Li's voice, the grandfather who was reading the newspaper also turned his head, and suddenly saw Tang Wan, who was as small as a diced bean. Grandma Li took Tang Wan's hand and asked her to come in, still asking, "Did you come here alone?" Tang Wan nodded and stood at the door sensibly. Instead of walking in presumptuously, she looked at the shoe cabinet to see if there were any shoe covers. Grandma Li couldn't control the smile on her face when she saw Tang Wan making such an action. She bent down, pinched Tang Wan's face, and said, "My dear, why are you so cute?" Grandma Li took out the plush slippers she had prepared for Tang Wan, asked Tang Wan to put them on, and then started walking to the kitchen. "I want to get the mung bean soup I made for Tang Wan." He was still saying, "You go and stay with Grandpa Tao, and I will bring you a bowl of mung bean soup." Tang Wan nodded obediently, and then walked to Grandpa Tao who was basking in the sun. Tang Wan looked at the blanket he put on his body. The pattern on it was extremely complicated, which was very different from the large area of solid color. It is colorful, but not flashy, but more complicated and gorgeous. The floor tiles on the ground are also very bold in color, with many spliced colors. But the amazing thing is that the combination of these colors does not make the eyes uncomfortable. Silver ornaments are hung on the wall, and when the wind blows, there seems to be a vague sound. Suddenly, Tang Wan heard a somewhat vicissitudes of voice ringing in his ears, "Do you want to use these patterns to promote national culture?" Tang Wan was stunned for a moment, then nodded. "Humph, you don't overestimate your capabilities." Grandpa Tao's tone was full of contempt. But the strange thing is that Tang Wan did not hear any bad tone in this voice, but instead had some strange pride. "Do you know how many people have spent all their money trying to promote these folk cultures? And there are many taboos in them. Once you fail to do one thing, they will magnify it infinitely and find faults with you. Can you accept these?" Tang Wan tilted her head. This was her subconscious thinking action. After a while, Tang Wan picked up the tablet in his hand and wrote on it. "No one can guarantee that he will never make mistakes. And this is just a good publicity opportunity and does not require spending too much money. We just need to seize every opportunity for exposure and accumulate it bit by bit. One day folk culture will be carried forward." What Tang Wan said is reasonable. And the fact that she can say something like this shows that everything she did was done carefully and carefully, rather than casually, just to gain popularity. Grandma Li, who came out of the kitchen, only saw the tablet in Tang Wan's hand, and suddenly realized that her wife had started to take Xiao again. She glared at Grandpa Tao who was lying on the recliner angrily, and then said, "Tang Tang, don't take your Grandpa Tao's words to heart. This is what he is like. If he wants you to ask him to help, he has to pick yourself up. The older you get, the younger you get, and you are so childish." Grandpa Tao's face turned red when his wife suddenly poked him. He turned his head to one side, not looking at Tang Wan. It seemed that this way he could ignore the curious glances that Tang Wan looked over. A little embarrassed. Thanks to Jin Wan Zz and Yugzun Duk Xiao, the two treasures for their generous rewards. Thanks to Karen. 250A, Jin Wan Zz, Shamao Fi Tengton, and Chiyo 202402194883. See for their monthly votes. I love you so much. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 164. Chapter 164. Spring flowers will arrive as scheduled. However, Tangwan didn't take these things to heart. He just took out his tablet and wrote on it. Grandpa is very good. Can Grandma Li not know what kind of character her husband is like? Probably only children like Tangwan don't have the same experience as him. Tangwan has such a good temper that it makes people feel a little distressed to see him. Grandma Li handed the mung bean soup to Tangwan, then took the planning document from Tangwan's hand and read it carefully. Tangwan, on the other hand, sipped the mung bean soup carefully, drinking it one mouthful at a time, like a little hamster. The little flower hairpin on her head moves and looks particularly cute. In fact, the style of the little flower hairpin and Tangwan's clothes are somewhat inconsistent, but they can't stop Tangwan's good-looking face. Even though the styles are a bit mismatched, they are so cute. And this little flower was specially made by Lu Ziyi for Tangwan. Purely handmade, unique. Tangwan cherishes this little flower very much, so she wears it everywhere. Grandma Li glanced at it and then looked away, thinking it was quite interesting. The small flowers on it are swaying, and the petals have many different colors. They look like the hope of spring. With Tangwan's face, there is really a kind of vitality. Tangwan didn't know what Grandma Li was thinking. I just feel that the sunshine is gentle and comfortable. She was basking in the sun, feeling unprecedented warmth and feeling very comfortable. Mung bean soup is made in well water. It is cool and very sweet. Tangwan likes it very much. Grandpa Tao on the side stood up and walked to the side, not knowing what he was doing. Tangwan saw him walking into a room and closing the door. After a while, he came out with a lot of cakes in his hand and placed them in front of Tangwan. The tone was a little reserved, his face turned slightly to the side, and he looked a little arrogant. He said, "Eat it, we old guys can't eat this." Grandma Li on the side also nodded and kept saying, "Yes, yes, these things are too sweet, we can't eat them." Tangwan picked up one of the mung bean cakes and took a bite. The pastry melted in your mouth all of a sudden, it was sweet and had a hint of tea aroma. Delicious. They are all sweet. Grandma Li narrowed her eyes happily, returned the plan in her hand to Tangwan, and then said, "Yes, I think this plan is okay. We can provide national cultural support, provide some fabric support, and also produce some design drawings. Do you think there's anything else you need?" Grandma Li did not deal with Tangwan just because Tangwan was a child. Instead, she communicated and discussed with Tangwan seriously, wanting to confirm with Tangwan what she had not decided yet. Tangwan on the side thought for a while, and then wrote on the tablet. "Where are the tableware? I want to make some participatory tableware, such as wood carvings or porcelain." Grandma Li thought about it and felt that Tangwan's statement was also interesting. However, children's hands-on ability is limited, and not everyone has the ability to turn stone into gold. However, Tangwan said that this proposal is also feasible. Things that are just made cannot be used. They can only be used as ornaments or small pendants. Grandma Li thought of this and said, "Yes, we have copies and drawing books based on the paintings. There are also ceramic turntables that children can use, and these can be provided to you. Tang, do you have any other ideas?" Of course, Tangwan would not just ask for it, but also gave Grandma Li her own arrangements. Folk Culture Association will be promoted through the live broadcast of Lingyun College's Spring Flower Party, and will also be promoted through the Pei Family's homepage, which is considered 2 advertisements. If Grandma doesn't mind, you can add the name of Jingjiao University and promote it together. How could Grandma Li mind? The folk culture major of Jingjiao University is not actually a leading major, and many people are actually unaware of this major. This is free publicity. As long as Grandma Lee is in her right mind, she will not refuse it. She just didn't expect that such a little child could arrange this matter properly. Grandma Lee smiled and extended her hand to Tangwan in a shaking gesture. Tangwan also put his little hand in Grandma Lee's palm. Then, happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Time flies quickly, and soon the date of the spring flower party has arrived. As Lingyuan College's annual large-scale festival, all the teachers and students of the school are looking forward to it. This event is actually related to the election of the student union. As a 15-year fully managed college, Lingyuan College has comprehensive equipment that other schools do not have. Except for the early childhood department, there is no student union organization. Starting from the primary school, there are 3 student unions. Each student union has corresponding funds available. The student union also has the highest rights compared to other schools. They have a high degree of freedom and are also a bridge of communication between students and teachers. The election of members of the student union is also based on the organization of these activities. Personality, organizational skills, and learning ability are all indispensable. For example, Lu Ziyi is the deputy director of the art department of the student union. Chen Chuo is the director of the Department of Discipline Inspection. This is also a symbol of their achievements. First-year students generally do not join the student union. They are too young, and their self-control ability is naturally not as good as that of their senior classmates. But this time, there was an accident in the first grade. That is Tangwan, a student who has the support of 3 council members. Many students are actually looking at Tangwan, wanting to see if her organizational skills are as perfect as her face. Tangwan didn't know that so many people were looking at him. She is just used to thinking more about everything and doing her best in everything. Cars entered the campus one after another, came to the school garden square, and set up camp here. The first thing Tangwan did was to set up a screen, and then prepared a dozen chairs for all the students to sit there and watch how to set up a tent. The students in other classes looked at Tangwan, feeling a little strange. Didn't they prepare a hut? You don't have an RV, you still have to pitch your own tent, how troublesome it is. This activity is not very good. The demand for hands-on activities is too high. It doesn't feel right. However, these gossips only fell on Tangwan's ears and quickly dissipated. The video is not long, only 20 minutes. Tangwan rolled down the tent from the supply truck and placed it in front of them. If it were just a tablet, then only a few people could see her writing. So she typed what she wanted to say on the screen. It says, "Start taking action." Drones flew into the sky and recorded all these beautiful custom-made tents. The live broadcast room is open. The spring flowers will arrive as expected. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 165. Chapter 165. Let's go together. Lingyuan College's Spring Flower Party is a famous festival throughout Jingqiao. At this time, anyone who has time will go to the official website of the college to take a look at the lives of these children. At the end of the day, even a long experience is good. So as soon as they entered the live broadcast room, they were surprised by the tent that Tangwan brought out. That's not just a tent, it's more like a piece of art. Each tent has beautiful patterns on it, and every pattern carries the breath of life. Complex patterns cover the green grass, gradually turning into round tents. These tents are not small, and there are even very soft air mattresses inside. WC. What kind of tent is this? Why have I never seen it before? I haven't seen it before either. The pattern on it looks like a totem. It looks so impressive. This is an ancient totem, with oracle bones on it. Don't think about it. These tents are very expensive, costing tens of thousands each. Yes, the price of tens of thousands is still the price without patterns, and the patterned ones are of course more expensive, etc. There is also a logo underneath these patterns, which seems to be the logo of Jingjiao University. Isn't this the folklore major of Jingjiao University? This is a very unpopular major, and you need a doctorate or above to get a job. I laughed until I cried. This professional doctorate is considered entry level. Wait a minute, is that little doubting Tang Tang? Woohoo, baby Tang Tang, let your aunt kiss you. Although New Dad is a very niche variety show, one of its guests is a popular actor, so the show is still very popular. So when some viewers saw Tang Wan, who had disappeared for a long time, they began to tell the news at the support group of the program team and let them watch it together. Tang Wan doesn't know yet, but more and more people are watching the live broadcast. She has learned that Lingyuan College's live broadcast rooms are not particularly popular, usually around 100,000 people. After all, more people are still making money during working days. Tang Wan has very strong hands-on skills. Wearing a bright yellow one-piece yellow duck suit, she shuttled in front of her tent. It can also be regarded as setting an example for the students. When the tent is set up, the tent is also fixed in position. Few children who go to school in Lingyuan have this kind of experience. But almost all children have a natural gene that likes to engage in infrastructure construction. They were a little disdainful of these grog bags at first. It wasn't until Tang Wan actually turned these grog bags into a decent small house that their eyes really lit up. There is even a small door that is about the same height as them, and a small bed that can only be slept on by oneself. Let me ask you, who has never thought of having a small magic house that can be moved? So they began to assemble their own tents impatiently. Even Ji Helen, who has always been arrogant, is no exception. Originally the person next to Tang Guan's tent was Gong Xiao, but Ji Helen squeezed him away without mercy. Ji Helen came to Tang Wan's side, imitated Tang Wan's example, and began to assemble his own tent. It's just that there are still a handful of kids who are as capable as Tang Wan. At least Ji Helen's hands-on ability is obviously not as strong as Tang Wan's, and he can't assemble it well. Even positioning with nails is a bit clumsy. But he pursed his lips, not asking for help from others, but just doing his best. Dong dong dong, hammering the nails loudly. It's like competing with someone. He didn't speak, so Tang Wan naturally didn't know that he needed help. Other children were not as awkward as him and took the initiative to find Tang Wan for help. Especially Fu Reihan. Ever since Tang Wan helped her last time, in Fu Reihan's heart, Tang Wan was like a god, capable of anything. Gong Xiao was driven to Fu Reihan's side. The two girls helped each other, but still couldn't set up the tent. In the end, Tang Wan came to help them secure their position, set up the tent, and make a small bed. The two cubs couldn't wait to run to their tents, spread out the blankets with ethnic characteristics that Tang Wan had prepared for everyone, and roll around on them. Those blankets were carefully prepared by Tang Wan. Not only were they sterilized at high temperatures, they were also exposed to the sun. When you lay on them, they smelled like the sun, which was so warm that your heart softened. It's just that some children don't like to use other people's things. If they want to prepare personal things like this, they can prepare them themselves. But when they saw the blanket that Tang Wan took out, and then looked at their own mediocre blanket, they still felt a little envious. Had I known earlier, I would have used the blanket prepared by Tang Wan. It's so beautiful. By the time all the children's tents were pitched, Ji Helen's tent had not yet been pitched. In a crowd of round tents, his shriveled tent stood out a bit. Even somewhat pitiful. Upon seeing this, Ming Hao took the initiative to walk to Ji Helen's side, wanting to be with him. However, Ji Helen pushed him away. He wiped the sweat from his face, with an unconvinced expression on his beautiful face. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but he kept looking at Tang Wan from the corner of his eye, as if he was sulking. Ming Hao could tell at a glance, but he didn't expect Ji Helen to be so stubborn. It should be said that he is awkward. I want Tang Wan to talk to me, but I don't take the initiative to find Tang Wan. Ming Hao sighed and walked towards Tang Wan resignedly. What can I do? His friend is like this. How can I not help him? Tang Wan looked at Ming Hao walking towards her and tilted her head in confusion. With the little yellow duck clothes she was wearing, she looked doubly cute. Ming Hao was also made cute. But now is obviously not a good time to be dazed. Ming Hao approached Tang Wan, pointed in the direction of Ji Helen, and whispered, "Classmate Tang Wan, can you go and help him?" Tang Wan looked in the direction of Ming Hao's finger and saw the stubborn Ji Helen. It was different from the usual Ji Helen. Ji Helen now lacks those unpleasant temperaments, and he looks clumsy and even a little soft. Although Tang Wan doesn't like Ji Helen, he will not refuse others' help. So he nodded and walked to Ji Helen's side. She picked up the nails on the ground, poked Ji Helen, and took out the tablet. "Let's go together." Ji Helen pursed his lips, his eyes were red, and he looked like he was about to shed tears. He has never been so embarrassed. It can be said that Ji Helen has never been so backward. But he finally arrived in Tang Wan. Tang Wan stood in front of him and stretched out her hand to him. It's like all the uneasiness has been dispelled. By some strange coincidence, Ji Helen stretched out his hand towards Tang Wan as if he was bewitched, and placed his somewhat dirty paws in Tang Wan's hand. Then he answered somewhat arrogantly. Thanks to Juai Artist and Yao Bookworm for their monthly votes. Thanks to Jinzi Wan Zz Bayazai for the reward. Love you, good night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 166. Chapter 166 Apron 3000. With Tang Wan's help, Ji Helen quickly set up his tent. The entire first grade, A, class is conspicuous in this venue. Most other classes choose RVs. Basically, two children are in one RV, and the teacher is in a separate RV. They were all used to it, but they didn't expect that this time it would be different. The drone was also attracted by these patterns and flew over these tents, but the operator did not land for fear that the wings would scratch these beautiful tents. That would be too bad. Each tent has a small bed. These small beds were also made by Tang Wan based on the materials that his classmates liked. Some are made of wood, and some are soft beds. There are even water beds, the cool kind. Tang Wan doesn't have high requirements for these, as long as he has a place to sleep, so he chose the simplest inflatable bed. There is a fluffy blanket on top, and the quilt is also fluffy. Grandma Li made it specially for Tang Wan. It's different from everyone else. This tent is specially prepared for children, and the size is reduced according to proportion. Even the windows are smaller than ordinary windows. It actually satisfies the children's long-standing desire to have a small house of their own. Although everyone was very reserved, the tent was so beautiful that it made everyone look back frequently while they were doing other things. Even students from other classes couldn't help but come here and want to see this tent. Then he walked away sourly, still speaking unconvinced. What's good is that you can do it yourself. It's so tiring, so our RV is the most convenient. It's just that it's so hard to build such a small tent that only one person can live in. It's not convenient at all. These tents don't look that good, they're all gaudy and I don't like them. Huh, you really don't like it, but you have looked back several times. Shut up. The audience in the live broadcast room couldn't help laughing when they saw this. How can anyone talk specifically about the tubes in human lungs? Laughing to death, the child's face suddenly changed. Ha ha ha, it turns out they are not very good at talking. Is there a possibility that people just poked his lungs? Ha 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 ha, it's really fun. Tangwan didn't have time to look at the arrangements of other classes, but he heard the melodious sound of the piano. As soon as I looked up, I saw the class opposite, playing music on the hill. In the middle of the two classes, there happened to be a meandering river with some free fish swimming in it. The surrounding greenery is very good, making the place look like a park, which is particularly beautiful. With music, people feel extremely happy physically and mentally. Woohoo, is this someone else's school? So beautiful. When can we go to such a school in our lifetime? Let me report to everyone, I just searched for the tuition fees of this college. It requires family assets of tens of millions, and the tuition fee is 400,000 yuan a year. Farewell, farewell. I can't afford it, I can't afford it, woohoo, I'm taking the liberty. I really want to go to school in a park. I heard that their teaching buildings are all garden-like, with meandering water basins. Wow, I'm really tired of saying the word envy. Tangwan didn't know what the audience was saying, so he just silently speeded up the movements of his hands. I don't know how other classes solve the problem of eating, but here in Tangwan they choose to have a barbecue together. But it's not just a simple barbecue. Instead, use the barbecue grill in a circle to ensure that every student has a place. Then he opened the refrigerated truck for preparing ingredients. It was full of fresh ingredients, many of which had just been flown in today. Obviously, Tangwan did not expect these people to prepare so much. When I opened it, it was full of things. This food is enough to last for several days, but do they really have to eat this every day? Tangwan picked up the tablet and wrote down his question. Ming Hao touched the tip of his nose, smiled, and said, "No, this is from today. Of course tomorrow's will be fresh." Tangwan, do you have any ideas? Tangwan doesn't have much idea, he just thinks it's a bit wasteful. She thought for a moment, then pulled the head teacher standing aside and raised the tablet. Do all classes prepare their own food? The head teacher looked at Tangwan's question and knew that she had a different idea. He took a sip of water and spoke slowly, "No, some classes just want to trade with other classes." Tangwan nodded little by little, even with the little yellow duck hat on his head. Exceptionally cute. It seems that you can still make money. Tangwan doesn't have any unscrupulous hobbies like taking other people's things or letting others contribute to make money for himself. She told the news to her classmates and asked them if they were interested in making money with her. Ming Hao thought about it and thought it was okay. After all, there is something ready-made, so if you don't use it, it will be in vain. As for other students, they just find it interesting. Tangwan thought of two ways of buying and selling. One is to let people in other classes do it themselves, and the other is to let them buy finished products. Tangwan originally thought that most of them would choose to let those students who bought things do it themselves, but he did not expect that most of the students actually chose to sell the finished products. The children did not miss Tangwan's expression, their expressions were a little erratic. To put it bluntly, they usually learn a lot and have little opportunity or time to do it themselves. I didn't see any other classes. Are they just a different place to practice their specialties? As for the opportunity to make your own food, it is almost non-existent. They can't even play it themselves, so they let others play it? Don't, it's such a shame. Tangwan is very democratic. Since everyone wants to sell finished products, then just sell them. She turned around and found a large blackboard, drew on it with chalk, and then wrote the advertisement. Garlic prawns, 3,000 each. Garlic eggplant, 400 each. Cold seasonal vegetables, 200 per plate. Looking at the price written by Tangwan, the audience felt a little numb. Seriously, I almost don't recognize the units here. Is this RMB? Not some happy beans. It's so expensive. I really don't regard money as money. 3,000 for one is less than half a month's salary for me. If you don't look at how expensive that raw material is, you can't get it without 2,000 for that shrimp. Yes, actually Tang Tang just added a little to the original price because it cannot be a loss-making business. I was laughing so hard that I couldn't do a loss-making business. I laughed and cried. My salary can hardly afford to buy such a shrimp. When you are so happy, don't mention such sad things. That is to say, is there a possibility that children like them came here to participate in activities and did not bring any cash at all? The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 167. Chapter 167 Ripples on the Water. By the time Tang Wan wrote down the prices, a circle of people had already gathered around her. Most of them are alumni, and some are classmates at West Campus. The leaders are Go 11 and Lu Zi. They followed Tang Wan, took out a card, and asked with bright eyes, "Can we order food?" Tang Wan glanced at the card in front of him, and then at the person in front of him. Finally realized that I had forgotten something. Correct. How should they trade? Ming Hao is not short of money. Tang Wan set the price like this. He has no objection, and neither does his alumni. But since you want to do activities, you must do some meaningful activities. Their tents are all used to promote folk culture, and he can also donate his profits. Other students also care about experience rather than money. For them, money is already a series of numbers, and their actual meaning is really incomparable to their own experience. So they also agreed with Ming Hao's proposal. All proceeds from this barbecue will be given to the student union. The college has a financial aid fund specially prepared for poor students. Of course, they are not students from Lingyun College, but poor students from other schools in Jingqiao, as well as from nearby welfare institutions. As long as the documents are complete and the authenticity of the student information is ensured, anyone can apply for this scholarship. When the head teacher knew about this, he looked at the group of little beans in front of him for the first time. If it were them in the past, they probably would not hand over the benefits they received. The education they received was to maximize the monetary returns on their hands, instead of giving. Thinking of this, the head teacher turned his attention to Tang Wan. Probably it was because of Tang Wan that they had such a different idea. Only by infecting the kindness of others can these indifferent children make different choices. No matter what their starting point was, there is no doubt that they received unprecedented praise for this live broadcast. Wow, they are so nice. There should be a lot of money here, right? If someone really buys it, and the quantity is not low, it will probably be around 100,000. I have donated all this money, so I can be considered a very good person. It should be for show, who can't show off? Deed, don't think so bad of people, okay? Lingyun College's funding bonus is very famous. Even if you don't know it, don't maliciously speculate on the goodwill of others. Just do good deeds, do them with such great fanfare, simply for the sake of a good reputation. To do good deeds, you must leave your name. If all people who do good deeds were like this, I wish everyone would leave their name. They are doing real things, not false donations. I also said, why are you so malicious towards a child? Whether they want popularity or fame, they have really done these good things. There are all kinds of audiences. And those little cubs who are born with a silver spoon in their mouths don't take it to heart at all. There are too many things in their world that require attention, and such a small amount of malice will not leave any trace on their hearts. Tang Wan's craftsmanship is very good. As for barbecue and cold dishes, the most important thing is to season them well. To make it easier for everyone to get started, Tang Wan took out the seasoning she had prepared a long time ago. It was specially prepared by her and she only needed to apply it. Vegetables, meat, salads, stir-fries. According to these, Tang Guan can be divided into several types. There are 5 large boxes of condiments alone. Then the barbecue stall was set up and the fire was lit. There was only a little smoke, and it was very lively. Sprinkled the condiment made by Tang Guan, and an overbearing aroma swept over instantly, causing the surrounding students to stop what they were doing. It's not like everyone has eaten a lot of things. It's just that I haven't eaten good food made by my peers. Especially the smell of these barbecues is very strong, and when the wind blows, it spreads everywhere. Tang Wan saw that they were cooking well, so he gave up his barbecue seat to Lu Ziyi and Go 11, went to find some seafood, and then dug out a big pot in the carriage. Walked to the middle of the barbecue stall, set up the big pot, and prepared to make seafood soup. It's just that Tang Wan overestimated his height. She was holding the cauldron and couldn't see the road ahead at all. In the eyes of others, she is just a little yellow duck swimming on the grass holding a pot bigger than herself. It's too cute to be true. Only Ji Helen, who was standing behind Tang Wan, looked at Tang Wan's clumsy movements and knew that she was struggling. He wanted to stand up and help, but he felt that it would be too embarrassing for him to go up now. So he sat back in his seat and wanted to wait for Tang Wan to find someone for help before going out. But he waited and waited, but did not wait until Tang Wan turned around. Instead, a black figure came to Tang Wan's side and directly stretched out his hand to take the pot from Tang Wan's hand. It is Fu Wenzi. As soon as Tang Wan raised his head, he saw Fu Wenzi. He pursed his lips. He had a rare expression on his face and looked a little cold. For some reason, Tang Wan felt a little guilty. Chen Shuo on the side looked at the ingredients in Tang Wan's hand, raised his eyebrows, stretched out his hand to take it, and said disgusting words. So powerful. You have 2 extra hands, right? If we don't come over, do you want to make us a little yellow duck stewed in an iron pot? At this point, Chen Shuo paused for a moment, then shook his head and said expressionlessly, I don't like to eat little yellow duck stewed in an iron pot. I think seafood soup is pretty good. A blush appeared on Tang Wan's face. She couldn't tell that this was Chen Shuo deliberately trying to flatter himself. She just didn't expect that making seafood soup would involve so many setbacks. Furthermore, Tang Wan was originally a loner, and she was not used to asking others for help. Chen Shuo sighed, took Tang Wan's hand and walked towards Fu Wenzi, still talking. Don't do that next time. Tang Wan raised his head and saw only Chen Shuo's chin. We'll be worried. Tang, can you think about yourself? I would be worried. Occasionally, Chen Shuo's words and Lu Lin's words overlapped. Tang Wan was stunned for a moment, then nodded solemnly. Fu Wenzi, who was on the opposite side, had already put the big pot, poured water for Tang Wan and lit the fire. He just looked at Tang Wan, obviously still a little angry. However, Tang Wan made an unexpected move. Tang Wan stretched out his hand, grabbed Fu Wenzi's wrist, and shook it gently twice. Like being coquettish. The wind blew across the lake opposite, causing ripples on the water. Melodious music sounded, matching the noisy crowd. They looked at each other, as if embracing each other in front of everyone. It's like completing a conversation again. Hidden and secretly happy. Thanks Jinziwenzi's Habayazai for the reward, I love you so much. Also, dear friends, please don't raise when QQ, otherwise you will lose your income and be raised to death, woo woo. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 168. Chapter 168 Naturally Defeating Arrogance. It's a pity that Tang Wan couldn't laugh. She looked at the cauldron in front of her, feeling guilty spreading around her. Chen Shuo helped Tang Wan pour water, and Fu Wenzi helped Tang Wan adjust the temperature, and then stood beside her. Other students were busy grilling skewers, even Go 11 and Lu Ziyi were no exception. The seafood soup in the middle is a gift, but it costs 500 yuan. For these children, this is a free gift. It's only 500, just sprinkle some water. Tang Wan took the steamed buns, cut them into slices, and baked them on the rack. Then he prepared some vegetables and baked the marinated crab cakes together. After everything is cooked, skewer them all. A simple steamed bun pancake is ready. Fu Wenzi looked at the food handed over by Tang Wan, raised his eyebrows, and joked with a smile on his face, "How much does this cost?" "You didn't write." Tang Wan knew that Fu Wenzi was teasing him. Others' eyes also fell on Tang Wan, as if they were waiting for Tang Wan's answer. After all, there were so many people around, and they were quite curious about what Fu Wenzi was holding. To be honest, other students' skills are not as good as Tang Wan's. Obviously they all use the same ingredients and seasonings, but the things Tang Wan bakes are just a little bit more delicious. Of course, the more reason may be that they simply cannot control when the food will be cooked. Some are raw and some are roasted. In short, it is not edible. But most of the children are happy. This is probably the first time that they don't have to think about their family background to flatter or act according to the instructions of their elders. Instead, they follow their own hearts and choose what they like. Tang Wan looked at Fu Wenzi's appearance and stretched out his hand to take back the steamed buns and pancakes he had made. However, Fu Wenzi took a bite. At this time, he didn't have the fake smile he usually had, but was extraordinarily sincere. But probably only when he is around Tang Wan, he will look like this. His voice still has a youthful tone, and the smile on his face that is more delicate than others is the spring wind and the scorching sun. Okay, I'm just kidding, I know, this is a special treat for Tang's friends. Right. Tang Wan's outstretched fingers curled up slightly, and the pink fingertips were particularly crystal clear in the sun. Chen Chuo sat quietly beside them and ate his lunch without saying a word. As for Go 11 and Lu Ziyi, they were still arguing over who would have the kebabs. They are not doing it to make money, just to rest. Next to the Tang Wan barbecue stall is Ji Helen's stall. His face was a little red from the fireworks, and his face that looked like a little angel was also covered with black ash, making him look a little embarrassed. There were not many people in front of Ji Helen. Only the children who usually follow him. However, when they got the food made by Ji Helen, they did not dare to eat it. Laughing to death, who dares to swallow this thing that is still bleeding? Ji Helen didn't miss their movements, pursed his lips, then picked up the scallops on the barbecue stall and wanted to take a bite. However, he was stopped by Tang Wan on the side. For everyone's safety, Tang Wan wrote how long these foods should be baked. This has prevented many tragic food poisoning incidents. Among them, Ji Helen is the slowest learner. I don't know what's going on with him. He's so busy doing things. Tang Wan sighed, walked to him, and taught him bit by bit. Ji Helen was also rare and well behaved. He didn't say anything that wasn't flirtatious. With his innocent and well-behaved face and slightly curly hair, he could really deceive others. Some people also wanted to go to Ji Helen's side and buy some barbecue, but they were stopped by Ming Hao, who was very discerning. His left and right hands each hooked a person's neck, and said with a smile, "Let's go to my place." Helen's craftsmanship has not yet mastered. But. The two wanted to say something, but Ming Hao pushed them away. Fu Wenzi looked at his movements and squinted his eyes slightly, as if he understood something, and cast his gaze on Tang Wan and Ji Helen. Tut! He pursed his lips. Feeling a little eyesore. Ji Helen's eyes did not fall on Tang Wan's face, but focused on Tang Wan's hands. Different from Tang Wan's face, Tang Wan's hands actually have some scars. There was a round scar on the back of his hand, and Ji Helen knew what it was caused by. It is a cigarette butt. His mother also has such scars. It's just that my mother's scar is wrapped under the gorgeous skirt and cannot be seen by others. Speaking of which, Tang Wan seems to have always worn long clothes with long sleeves to cover her body. Did she have the same injuries as her mother under her clothes? Ji Helen thought, still feeling a little uncomfortable. He has no ability to protect his mother, nor can he protect Tang Wan. So like his father, he only learned to destroy. The charcoal fire under the grill made a pop sound, as if it was mixed with some dead branches, causing the moisture inside to explode. Suddenly Tang Wan raised his wrist and handed Ji Helen a bunch of grilled mushrooms. Ji Helen subconsciously reached out his hand, took the mushroom handed over by Tang Wan, and then bit into it. Hot, hot, hot. He didn't even blow on it, he just bit it and it burned his tongue. Then he jumped up and down, and some tears unconsciously leaked out of his eyes. Looking a little pitiful. But even so, he did not spit out the food in his mouth. This is a mushroom specially roasted for myself. It is specially made for oneself. Not following my father's orders, nor was it arranged. Is exclusive to oneself. Tang Wan hurriedly handed Ji Helen a bottle of water, but Ji Helen swallowed the mushroom in his mouth regardless, and then slurred something. It's okay, it's okay. So. Tang Wan didn't show much emotion when he saw him being so arrogant. She was about to return to her seat when Ji Helen suddenly stretched out his hand, took Tang Wan's wrist, lowered his head and said hesitantly, I don't know how to make kebabs. Perhaps it was the first time I was showing weakness, so I seemed a little uncomfortable. There was a blush on her face, either from the heat or from embarrassment. The audience in the live broadcast room accurately described the young master of the Ji family. Is this Tsundere? Hasn't Tsundere already withdrawn from the general environment? Ha ha ha, but you are naturally very straightforward and can be very arrogant. Look at the young master of the Ji family. Even after he has spoken like this, Tang Tang is still indifferent. Tang Tang, don't touch me. I didn't look good when I taught you. Now you want me to start a small stove. You are really a little fool. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 169. Chapter 169. In her eyes, she is just Ji Helen. Before Tang Wan had time to answer Ji Helen, Fu Wenzi, who was on the side, took the lead and walked up to Tang Wan. He has finished the food in his hand, his eyes are narrowed, and the vision hidden under his glasses looks a bit sharp. Especially Ji Helen, who was face to face with Fu Wenzi, felt a hint of coldness. The boy in front of him felt pressured to face his father. As if looking down at oneself. Ji Helen was stunned for a moment and did not dare to make any move. Looking at Fu Wenzi, there was also fear in his eyes. It was also because of this moment of sluggishness that he let go of Tang Wan's hand. Tang Wan returned to his seat and heard Fu Wenzi say something behind him. Tang Tang hasn't eaten yet, let me teach you. His voice can even be considered gentle, but his actions are actually strong. The action of holding Ji Helen back cannot be refused. It's just that Tang Wan didn't see it. Ji Helen reacted the moment Fu Wenzi pulled him. Fu Wenzi's hand was a little strong, and the pain made Ji Helen come back to his senses. He bared his teeth, glared at Fu Wenzi fiercely, and wanted to throw away Fu Wenzi's hand. Just the corner of his eye fell on Tang Wan, and he seemed to remember something. He gritted his teeth in a low voice, and even his voice seemed to be squeezed out of his throat, "Let me go." Hearing this, Fu Wenzi instantly let go of Ji Helen's hand. Ji Helen rushed forward due to inertia, and his head accidentally hit the barbecue grill, making a crisp sound. Tang Wan had just taken a bite of food when he found Ji Helen lying on the ground and stood up immediately. The head teacher also walked over quickly, but he was sighing secretly in his heart. These dolls are very valuable, so nothing happens to them. Otherwise. His eyes fell vaguely on Tang Wan, feeling a little worried. After all, Ji Helen's father was notoriously unreasonable. By chance, Ji Helen happened to bump into the corner of the barbecue grill. Fortunately, Tang Wan was prepared in advance and wrapped all the corners with a layer of sponge, preventing Ji Helen's head from hitting him directly. But even so, Ji Helen still had an extra bag on his head. His face looked a little ugly. He looked at Fu Wenzi with a ferocious look. At that moment, Ji Helen felt something tripping under his feet. If he hadn't turned sideways, the place he hit would not have been the barbecue grill, but the stone block next to him for squatting. Ji Helen was a little scared when he thought of this. Something will definitely happen if you hit it. When he raised his eyes to look at Fu Wenzi, what he saw was Fu Wenzi's slightly worried eyes. There is absolutely no malice in it. This knowledge made Ji Helen shudder. He subconsciously looked at Fu Wenzi's feet. But there is nothing on the earth. It seems that what I just felt was just my illusion. The head teacher's voice interrupted Ji Helen's thoughts and pulled him back. Classmate Ji, the school doctor is here to bandage you. Ji Helen covered his head and shook his head. It's okay. He is really fine. It was just a bump, not even the skin was broken. If something happens to me here, my father will definitely be angry. He will definitely find Tang Wan when the time comes. Ji Helen didn't want his father to embarrass Tang Wan, so he spread his hands, stood up as if nothing had happened, patted the dust on his body, and said, "It's okay, I accidentally stepped on the air." Then he glanced at Fu Wenzi and said, "Don't bother the senior, I know how to bake it." Tang Wan stood behind Fu Wenzi and watched Fu Wenzi turn around with a somewhat regretful expression on his face. Looks like he regrets not being able to teach Ji Helen. But Tang Wan frowned slightly. Fu Wenzi is not the kind of person who likes to be nosy. I always felt that it was not because he regretted not being able to teach Ji Helen, but something else. Her eyes fell between Fu Wenzi and Ji Helen, then she walked up to Ji Helen, took out a wet wipe and handed it to Ji Helen. What? Tang Wan suddenly came to Ji Helen, which surprised Ji Helen, and the blush on his face became more obvious. Even the tone of voice is a little floating. Looking at the wet wipes handed over by Tang Wan, he bent down immodestly and seemed to want Tang Wan to wipe his forehead with his own hands. Humph, I usually don't use wet wipes from other brands like this. Yulin's brand of wet wipes is the best. Tang Wan had no extra expression on his face and just nodded perfunctorily. Then he wiped his somewhat dirty forehead with the wet wipe on his hand. He also missed Fu Wenzi's eyes that suddenly turned gloomy. Ji Helen opened one eye, and in front of him was the sweet smell of orange candy from Tang Wan. Then he looked at Fu Wenzi provocatively, looking particularly arrogant. Go 11 turned her head and saw Ji Helen's expression. She rolled her eyes angrily, then put down the big chicken drumstick in her hand, grabbed Tang Wan's hand and pulled her back, still muttering in her mouth. Tang, you are so kind, it was not you who caused him to fall, you even wiped him with your hands. I would say, if he is irritable himself, he should be allowed to remember it for a long time. Okay, sit down quickly, I baked the chicken wings for you to eat. Damn it, Lucy, put your paw down, that's what I baked for Tang. Put your paws down. Ji Helen looked at Tang Wan, and there was pure kindness around her, which was very lively. Beside him, there are those classmates who are afraid of his father's revenge and stand beside him. Even the teacher's eyes don't see himself, but the value behind him. Ji Helen's provocative expression suddenly subsided. His mood suddenly became bad. He only saw himself in Tang Wan's eyes. In Tang Wan's eyes, he is Ji Helen, and only Ji Helen. Not the young master of the Ji group, nor the heir to the Ji family. Just a simple desk mate, A simple classmate. Fu Wenzi, who looked very gloomy, put a gentle smile on his face again, and returned to Tang Wan. Just when he looked at himself, those eyes were particularly cold. Ji Helen licked the root of his teeth with the tip of his tongue, trying to replace Fu Wenzi's position. He wanted to go to Tang Wan's side. Become friends with her. Want to feel the real excitement. Ji Helen shook his head at the people surrounding him and said that he was fine and there was no need to say anything, let alone tell his father in a troublesome manner. He returned to his seat and followed Tang Wan's example in heating the cold mushrooms. Then he took a hard bite. It is delicious. That's what he wants too. Master Ji, are you biting a mushroom? That's obviously just venting your anger. Ha ha ha, why do some people look so vicious after eating a mushroom? A bit like a little lion. Damn it, this is a poor little lion who obviously wanted to be friends with Tang Tang, but was knocked away by Xixi's punch. Pathy. Thanks Jinziwenzi's Habayazai for the reward, Thanks to Xiao's Hizi, Zixi Amumwiu, Sister Xian, and the 4 treasures of Meowing at the Moon for their monthly votes. I love you all so much. The character design for Kak has finally been drawn. Now I'm looking for someone to make the badge. It's been another long wait. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 170. Chapter 170 There is a first time for everything. The happiest children at Kajiga Club are probably the kids from Class 1A. This is the first time they have made their own food and sold such cheap food. These activities were not taken seriously by them before, but now they have adapted well. Night fell quietly, and the children in other classes returned to their own classes. Even Go 11 and the others are no exception. Just before leaving, Tang Wan gave each of them a star lantern. It was bought by Tang Wan. Only the size of a palm. Warm yellow light, very suitable for single use. Everyone can't put it down. It's really easy to feel whether a person takes himself or herself seriously. With a friend like Tang Wan who always thinks of herself no matter what she does, who wouldn't be happy with her? Go 11 is happy anyway. Once she was happy, she didn't want to leave Tang Wan. The others are boys, so naturally they cannot stay here in Tang Wan, but Go 11 can. Go 11 is a person who does whatever comes to his mind, and he immediately told Tang Wan what he thought. Tang Tang, I want to live with you, can you take me in? As she spoke, she stretched out her hand and took Tang Wan's arm, shaking it coquettishly. Tang Tang, please. She also blinked her dog eyes, looking like an expectant puppy. Tang Wan was not a hard-hearted person to begin with. Seeing Go 11 say this, he could only smile and nod. But Go 11 did not want to return to their class camp, so she needed to tell her class teacher. This matter is also easy to handle. Go 11 took out the child's watch and called the class teacher to report. After getting the answer she wanted, she hugged Tang Wan tightly and rubbed Tang Wan's face hard, her voice was full of excitement. No. She agreed, I will sleep with you today. As she spoke, she looked at Lu Ziyi and others provocatively. If he had a tail, it would probably be wagging it proudly to the sky by now. Lu Ziyi rolled his eyes angrily and muttered, don't bully my Tang Tang, don't fight for the quilt with her, don't let Tang Tang catch a cold, she's not in good health and can't catch a cold. He was chattering like the second generation of Lu Lin. Go 11 became impatient after listening for a while. Stretched out his hand to push Lu Ziyi's back and started to chase people away. Okay, I got it, hurry up and leave, I can't listen anymore. As for Chen Chuo and Fu Wenzi, they still stood where they were and said goodbye to Tang Wan politely. Then he turned around and walked closer into the night. The surrounding lights were lit up like fireflies lighting up the lawn. The mosquito-killing equipment hidden in the bushes was turned on, exuding a light and gentle fragrance, wrapping all the children and giving them a great sense of security. The children in class A also couldn't wait to return to their tents. Seriously, they have wanted to enter the tent for a long time. God knows that although their faces are calm, they are actually looking forward to it. Oh my God! This is the little magic house that children dream of. The kind that even adults can't get in. As soon as I think of this idea, I feel a little excited. Go 11 is no exception. Probably because I have never seen such a small room before, so I am full of curiosity about everything. With her sharp eyes, she immediately saw what was inside Tanguan's tent, and she poked her head around curiously. The whole tent is actually a little bigger than expected. At least when Go 11 looked outside, she thought it would be a little cramped and she would have to squat in a corner to live. But when I walked in and took a look, I felt that I was overthinking it. It's quite big inside, about 4 or 5 square meters. There was a soft-looking bed and a small sofa. Go 11 stepped forward and touched it. It was an inflatable sofa made of the same material as the bed. Her eyes lit up and she jumped up on the spot. It was like sitting on a trampoline and jumping up a little. At the same time, the things next to the sofa also fell out. Go 11 cast her eyes on it and took a breath. Tangwan was a little surprised when he saw her gaze and tilted his head, like a puzzled cat asking, "What's the matter?" Go 11 stretched out her hand, her fingertips still trembling, and asked, You still have a book with you at this time?" Tangwan stepped forward, bent down to pick up the book on the ground, and then shook it gently to shake off the non-existent dust on it. Then he picked up the tablet and wrote on it. Well, to kill time. Go 11 looked at this bilingual book and felt that she was really disappointed. Obviously I have been exposed to foreign languages for several years more than Tang Tang. Tang Tang can read bilingual books, but I can't even recite the phonetic symbols. Tangwan saw that Go 11's expression was a little depressed, so he reached out and took her wrist, shaking it gently. Written on the tablet. Let's go wash up. Go 11 is a happy little cub. Even if you feel lost, it will not stay with you for long. Soon she gathered her emotions, put a happy smile on her face, and went out to wash up with Tangwan. She glanced at the same towel in her hand as Tangwan's, as well as the same mouthwash cup and toothbrush. Her cheeks were a little red from excitement. He. Go 11 buried her face in the soft towel with a silly smile on her face. Is this what it feels like to have friends? Everything is a bestie outfit. Tangwan didn't know what Go 11 was thinking, but seeing that she didn't continue to have negative emotions, she pulled Go 11 into the tent. Fortunately, Tangwan was always well prepared and took out a new quilt from the closet. It is only different from the quilt on the bed in color. Others are exactly the same. Go 11 took the quilt from Tangwan very discerningly and lay on the bed with Tangwan. Then. Insomnia. Go 11's voice sounded in the quiet night, lacking the usual liveliness and looking a little lonely. Tang Tang, you will feel. As soon as the conversation started, Go 11 pursed her lips uneasily. His voice seemed to be suppressed, and the words in his throat could not come out. She thought of what her classmates at school had said. Thinking about the grades that I can't get any better. Thinking of the children who want to come to Tang Tang and replace themselves. Uneasiness and timidity arose in my heart. She is obviously the most confident child. But because of those words, he looked particularly cowardly. Suddenly, a calloused hand grasped Go 11's outstretched hand, and a burst of warm air blew away the coldness in her hand. Go 11 stared blankly at Tangwan, who was covering her hands, and heard her squeeze out a syllable from her throat. Ah!